um, without further ado, we're gonna get this party. We're gonna continue the party, and yeah, I'm so thrilled that you're here, despite being a bit under the weather for a couple of weeks. So thank you. And
Yeah.
as promised, this is your space to get your needs met. So what's on your mind today? How can I support you?
What's on my mind? Well, I am a chronic overthinker, so that's something I'm working on. Is just catching myself, because as we were talking before, it's hard to change anything if you're not aware of it. So that's really what I've been doing over this last couple of weeks, where I haven't been feeling good, and I'm just really leaning into it, trying to figure out where life is taking me, like what's going on. And so I just I've mentioned this to you, but for those who don't know me, I've had a lot of battles in my life with depression and anxiety, and I've risen above it. I've overcome a lot of it and tried to, create a business, create a mission, a movement out of it. And it has not been easy. A lot of my old programming likes to come back and bite me. And I would think that that's kind of what's been going on with this sickness, and with not exactly being where I want to be, and just a lot of resistance, I would say I've been feeling, and irritation. So that's kind of where I'm at, where I'm just reassessing, trying to figure out what I'm being called to do, if I'm being called to continue, to hold back, to heal some more, maybe. I don't know.
So tell me what the irritation is. What are you irritated about? What is making you just want to crawl out of your skin right now?
That's what I've been trying to figure out. And I've been really resistant to journaling, even that's usually my best outlet. It's either talking to somebody or like making a mess on the page. But I've just been having to sleep and rest, and it's really frustrating. So I think that's one of my biggest irritation, is just my heart and my mission is so big, but I'm being called to heal some deep stuff that has come up for me just within the last couple months. Feeling like I need to rewrite my book a little bit, so it's not ready to go like I wanted it to. So I think a lot of the irritation that I keep feeling is just like this: it's not time yet. It's not time yet. You're not ready, or, and trying to figure out how much is it me holding me back, and actually how much of it is beneficial. How much I need to surrender, like you mentioned that word surrender, and how much I need to just say, no, you brain, you're saying one thing, but I know this is the right way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you mentioned not being where you want to be.
Not at all.
Tell me about that place. What does that place look like? This place where you see in your mind's eye, this like when you reach this place where you want to be, what is that place?
Well, it's having the book in my hand saying, I finished this, I have this for you, and being able to be on stages and really helping women in such a deeper way than just calling them on the phone and talking to them. And, I have to do what's best for me and my health. And it's just a mismatch, and it's frustrating, because I know I'm called, and I feel called and pulled to do more.
Okay. So what you just shared pretty much matches the vision and the mission when you and I first spoke, maybe back in September, whenever that was.
I know, right?
So, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But I just wanted to do a temperature check and see if that changed or shifted at all. But no, it's still pretty much wanting to have the book done and out into the world. You're seeing stages. I remember you shared before that there's this vision of taking your family with you. Mom is going to go speak here and you guys are going to come with me, and it's going to be a vacation and a great time. And so that's still the desire that's in your heart.
Yep.
So what's preventing you from getting there? What's the block?
Like I said, I mean, a lot of it is my illness. I'm not free of it yet. I don't know if I ever will be. I mean, I don't really have any expectations of what it will look like, because no matter what, people have asked me before, like, would I keep doing what I'm doing even if I continue to be sick? And my answer is yes, but I would do it in a way that is supportive and it's not pushing me to my limits.
Mm.
So I'm still kind of trying to figure out what that looks like. You know, I've come so far and I'm so grateful. And again, I wouldn't stop doing what I'm doing, but there's definitely just this frustration that I've been feeling lately, where I'm like, I need to be on stages. I need to be doing more. I need to be, I want to, not just need, like, there's not all this shoulding and guilt and stuff there. It's like, I really, really want to. Every time that I have spoken on stage and anytime that I've been given the opportunity, I just want more of it. And I am booked to speak in a couple of places, but it's just doing my own thing when I'm left to my own devices. I think I kind of self-sabotage. You know, I'll put myself out there, no problem. But if it's like getting my book out or doing, you know, really doing it, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if I can share in this short amount of time that we have, but I have just really discovered from my adoption how many wounds and belief, even though I'm not suicidal and like in that depressed state anymore, I think it shows up in the fact that I'm like, I really shouldn't be here. I really shouldn't be doing what I'm doing.
Mm.
I really don't have a right to take up this space. That's kind of some of the stuff that pops up when I'm paying attention. Is just like, I've never had that in my life or allowed myself to have that. And so it's hard to know. I'm kind of still trying to navigate it. Some of it's still very new and fresh and confusing.
You're a woman of faith, right? I believe
I am.
we had a conversation about that before. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, do you think that it's ultimately true that God wants you to take up as little space as possible?
No, it's weird. It's almost like, maybe you've experienced this in your life too. Like, when I cry, like when I feel those feels, I can tell it's old. I can tell it's parts of me that I've stuffed down. So it's not necessarily how I feel anymore, but it's coming up finally, so that I can feel it, so that I can let it go. But it's very confusing to me, because in a lot of ways I'm doing really well. And so to have this kind of hit me where I'm like, okay, I mean, it makes sense not having trouble birthing things into the world. That's kind of where I'm at, where I have so much clarity. I mean, I've already helped so many women, but not to the capacity that I want to.
That's the thing with limiting beliefs, right?
Yep.
When we start to look at them and start to work through them, it's as you gain this clarity, right? The funky stuff starts to come up and come through. It's like you want it, you want to be out there, you see yourself on stages and impacting in a big way, but there's a part of you, and it can be the smallest part of you, this micro beat inside that doesn't believe that you can actually have it.
Yeah, my subconscious. Yeah.
And it's like it's kind of like this up and down. You get excited thinking that you can have it, but then there's the question of, well, who am I to have that?
Mm-hmm.
That stuff doesn't happen to me.
Yeah.
And this is what we call duality.
Hmm.
And the duality is what will get in your way. And it's normal when you're starting the process. And so part of manifestation, because we're always in a vibrant of we're always an energetic match for something, right? Part of that process is being clear and singularly focused on what you truly want. Like what is your heart's desire? Because that is your calling. That is there. God planted that seed before you were born. That is there for a very divine reason.
Yeah.
So tell me about the moment when you go to work on the book or write a couple pages and maybe you're in the flow. Tell me about what happens that kind of takes you out of that flow.
I mean, I'm pretty disciplined. I try to write at least 10 minutes a day. Um, and I know it's all there. I think my disconnect is like the organization and just having someone go through it besides me all the way through.
What does that mean? Clarify that for me.
Um, so my book is a step-by-step kind of a thing. So far I've helped people with parts of it, whatever part they need, but I haven't done like a full-on program. That's my plan, is to launch it. And so I think that's where I'm kind of struggling, is I know it's all there, but again, like you said, like who am I to put this out there, kind of a thing. I think a lot of it is just fear, and a lot of it is just um yeah, fear. But I think, so what I end up doing is I write it, and then I'm like, okay, is it ready for an editor? No. What else do I need to? So I think a lot of it is just, I already know kind of what I need, but I'm just not able to quite do that yet because of where I've invested already. Um, so it's kind of just been this frustrating thing for a while now. But at the same time, I kind of feel like if I would have put my book out when I wanted to, then this part of my story of my adoption, which I'm feeling called to put in there, would not have been in there. So I don't know. It's kind of
So
one of those things where I'm like, well, some of this is the right timing and some of this is me.
absolutely. It's co-creation,
Yeah.
right? Would you be willing to believe right now that you are perfectly where you're supposed to be?
Yeah. I mean, I feel that. I mean, probably when we first started talking, you could tell I'm kind of just in a place where I'm like, okay, there's a little frustration, but I'm definitely in a place where I'm like, all right, what am I supposed to do? What's my next step?
So I have an idea, and I want to take you through a process that has been tremendously helpful for me. I learned it from a mentor, and there are 9 steps. And within this framework, I think you're going to find that we can do some work around the who am I story, because
Hmm.
my instinct is that as long as that part of you is sticking around, it's going to be really difficult to launch the book, to
Yeah.
do the stages in the way you want to do the stages, to do the things. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
So would you be open to kind of flow through this framework and see how it is for you?
I'm always open.
Okay. So this was born out of Okay, so I'll just tell you that the person that I learned this from, she grew up very poor and didn't have much for the majority of her life. And she got kind of sick and tired of living that way, and so then developed this process and now uses it to create everything that she's created in her life. And she's built a very beautiful life. And I too grew up with not very much. And so there was a lot of negative beliefs ingrained and programmed in my system. So I mention that because we're two very different people. We are not special at all. We're children of God, and we implement the system and now are able to create the things that we desire. So if we can do it, I promise you can do it. And so we'll just play with it and we'll see what happens. Okay. So the first step is clarity. So this is about being clear about what you want, because you really can't attract the thing you want if you don't know what it is you want.
Mm-hmm.
And with this, there are no right or wrongs. It's just what you desire. There's no good or bad. So if you could do, earn, be anything, what would it be? And we can continue to use the book launch and then the stages and go that direction, but really think about what do you ultimately desire?
I really desire to be on stages. I really desire to be in it with the women, because online is great, but I'm a very empathic person, and I love to be with people and be in the trenches. And there's just so much that I can do online. So that's really where my heart is calling me, is get in there with as many people as you possibly can. As a coach, as a speaker, as an author. I got more books in me. Like, I kind of feel almost backed up a little, because I get this idea and I write it down, and then I'm like, nope, like I'm trying to learn how to finish my projects. And I'm not the only one I've noticed that has kind of been in that space where it's hard to finish things, because we are just so idea people. And I fall into that category. I'm really good at generating ideas. Really good at it. Like it fires me up. And I think the same happens on stage, because I'm in it. I'm with everybody's energy.
Beautiful. So why do you want that? Why do you want to be in the trenches with people, sharing your message on these stages?
Oh man. Well, I just feel like that. I mean, what's better than that? To be able to help women at such a deep level and be able to prevent stress from taking control of their life. I mean, it means so much, because there's just so much out there that makes you feel like you're a failure, like you're doing it wrong. And a lot of the times it's just a little tweak, it's a little something here, and people are well on their way. So, I mean, that's why I want to do it. I want to prevent that from all this internalization and this illness. I mean, it's really an epidemic if you look at it.
So as women, what we need to be able to live out our desires is we need to be really clear in how our dream is supporting others and how it's supporting the world, because that's when we can get behind it. And so you just very clearly laid out the reasons why this mission, how it supports others and how it supports the world. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So once we have the clarity, which that's not an issue for you, you're crystal clear.
Yeah.
The next step is observation. So this is where we get to become the gentle observer of our thoughts. And this is where we look at what mental blocks, limiting beliefs come up, like the who are you to have that, who are you to be on the stages type of thing. And this is about gently observing those thoughts and also gently clearing space. So we're clearing out the old, we're clearing out the beliefs that do not serve you. And a sidebar to this that is so crucial to understand, and I'm sure you're already well aware of this, limiting beliefs are rooted in our childhood. They're often rooted in the not enough, right? And so you're not enough to have the business, to lead the talks, to make the money doing that. It's this big old lie that you are lacking in some way. And the truth is, you are enough as you are. You always have been enough, right? So this process for some people will be more deeply ingrained than others. And you've been doing the work here, and you might just find that it's a never-ending process, right?
Sure.
And so this is where we just get to look at that belief and realize, oh, that's where that comes from. That's where that comes from. And it's not ultimately true.
Right.
And so going back to that belief of who am I to do that? What would you say is your core limiting belief that tends to kind of play out most intensively?
I'm not loved. I'm not wanted.
I'm not loved.
I've figured out that it's from my adoption. Lately, what I've been feeling and crying out is my mother's emotions. Can't even explain it. Just that loss, just that battle that she had trying to decide what was best for me. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been feeling a lot. And it makes it difficult to feel rooted, to feel, I've never felt that way, if I can be completely honest. Everything that I have created in my life has been a huge struggle to get there. And I don't say that as like a badge or anything, but it's just been the truth. Like I've never felt okay, not a single day in my life until just recently, where I've had more days where I do. But it has definitely it's never come easy to me. And so I think somewhere in there, there's a story there as well, that it has to continue to be this way, that it has to continue to be a struggle and be hard, because that's normal. I mean, I'm a mindset coach, so I look at the way the brain is wired, and I know my brain is comfortable with this. It's like freaking out saying, hey, you're still healing. Like, girl, you can't even eat things yet. Like, what are you doing? Slow down, come back. I think that's where this bronchitis or whatever has come from, because it's my body being like, whoa, there's some stuff here. And so I definitely have, I started doing some EMDR, to try to work through some of this, because it's 0 to, whatever age, where I kind of started believing that I wasn't wanted. And I didn't realize it until I started doing all of this. And so until I started to try to put myself out there and get rejections, or get clarity, or whatever it was that I received when I put myself out there. That's really, I'm so grateful that it's come up, but it's been difficult. It's been really, really difficult. And for several months now, I will just cry and cry and cry and just feel all of it. And it's been it's been hard.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm not shy about sharing, if you can't tell.
Mm. It is so brave of you. It's so brave of you to share your heart and to share your pain. And it's one thing to share it once you've healed and you're still navigating and willing to share. So that really just shows your leadership. And it's possible that right now it might feel hard to feel love for yourself going through all of this. And
Yeah.
so what I can say that I observe and see and feel is evident in you is that despite that, in this moment, there's this very real piece for you of wanting to help love other women, other people. You have that capacity in you as you heal the stuff from your past.
Yeah.
What would you want these people that haven't heard from you yet? What would you want them to know about loving themselves and feeling loved? What if there was one thing you could tell them, what would it be?
That's a really good question. I mean, when I think about this, I think about my kids,
Mm.
because a lot of what I'm doing is with my kids. Because I want to strengthen moms so they can, help their kids. But I see it already. I see that struggle within them to be like, I'm not good enough. And that's kind of where I would want people to start, is when just notice when those feelings come up. Because part of my problem, part of having all the pain that I've had in my life, is because I didn't realize that that's how I felt. I didn't realize that I was beating myself up. So that's the one thing that I could say that anybody could do, is to just, like we've been talking about, being an observer, is just when it comes up, to just feel it and not be afraid to feel it, and not be afraid to challenge it either.
Mm.
One The most empowering thing I think we can do for ourselves is to realize that what comes into our head, most of it is not true. And so we have to be conscious. We have to say, no, that's not true. Because deep down, I know none of this is true. I know this was how my life began, but it doesn't have to continue to be that way.
Mm.
So, when you hear people say, oh, just love yourself, it's intricate, but it really is integral, because you can't love your children the way that you want to, or serve the way that you want to, if you don't truly love yourself,
Mm.
flaws and all.
So having said that, what would your ultimate truth be in an ideal scenario?
My ultimate truth
Yes.
is just the opposite of how I feel most days, is I am loved, I am supported, I am wanted, I
Mm.
am needed in this world.
Mm. Supported, needed, and wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about some
This
of
is
the
all
ways.
going to be in my book, by the way.
I will buy the first copy.
Oh, I'm honored. Thank you.
Tell me how you're supported right now in your life, whatever comes to mind.
It's kind of odd. Like, I thought that to be supported meant that, you know, the people closest to me believed in me or loved me or wouldn't raise their voice at me. But I'm really starting to realize all these rules. Um, if you hear me speak, you'll hear me talk a lot about shoulding. Like, we just should till no
All over.
tomorrow. But if we have all these shoulds, if we have all these rules, we're constricting ourselves. You know, we're saying that somebody else or some circumstance has more power over us than we do ourselves. And so so that's just a big thing, is just realizing that we're doing that. I'm realizing that just lately. I've got some kids with oppositional defiance disorder and ADD, and they're wired differently, and they're beautifully wired differently. But it is a challenge to not crash into each other, to not hurt each other, for them to be able to feel all the things I wasn't able to do. And what it's really come up for me is I have all these rules that, like, you know, if my kids really love me, then they'll do da 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 da. Or if my husband really loves me, then he'll do da 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 da. And the more that I realize these rules, these shoulds, or these if thens, the more I realize how ridiculous it is. Because I'm saying that I have the power to change, you know, like, I have the power to change them or to have any influence over them. But that's really not the case. The more that I go in and work on myself and what I'm feeling called to do and what I'm feeling called to heal, the more it ripples into my family without me having to do anything. Like, this whole fix it, there's problems, like all this kind of stuff. It's really like, if we think about our own journey, we're all feeling kind of that same way. Like, we have things we're working on, and it's the same with our family. Like, we have to let them be. And so the more I do that, the more I realize, well, they're going to do it anyway. So I'm going to do me. And that, if that means removing myself, if that means saying, I won't tolerate this certain thing, but then that's the end of it. You know, I create the line and I hold the line, and I don't cross it. But that means letting go of, like, well, you know, if they yell, they yell. That does, and I'm working on it. I'm not saying like that this is super easy for me, but every time that I choose that, every time I'm like, okay, that's my favorite saying right now, is that that's theirs. I'll actually physically say that. I'll be like, that's theirs, you know, especially if I start feeling the feels, and I'll calm down and I'll say, okay, like, because I don't know if anybody has experienced this, but PTSD is really difficult, because if you've had trauma in your life and you're triggered, maybe you've heard that word triggered before, but that's exactly what happens. We have these rules, these beliefs that we've built up, and then we're triggered by somebody's behavior or an event or something. And so that's kind of where I'm at, is where I'm like, I'm starting to really get to the point where all these things that I pushed down, all these things that I haven't been aware of, like, they're coming, baby. they're coming, and like, I have power. I can do something with them. And so it's exciting, and it's frustrating, and it's all things.
You're on an exploration of personal power and responsibility, and you're seeing there's so much proof now of the actual control that you have to
Absolutely.
decide how things go. And
Yes.
it's kind of a reclaim of your own power that you didn't know existed.
Oh yeah. Oh, I was shut down. I mean, depression to me is, you are pressed down. That's how I look at depression. I don't look at it like all the other doctors do. It's basically, you are not safe enough to be you. So you abandon you.
So if we were to focus on, because your mission and why is so clear and strong, if we were to just focus on the people, the hearts that you are waiting to serve and reach with your message, and if it was more about, because sometimes it's easier to, if we can't exactly give ourselves what we need in a tender moment, we can for a second focus on the people we want to serve and give that same thing to, right?
Yeah.
So as it relates to stepping forward with your message, whether it's the book or the stage, what's the next step that you can take, knowing that this greater mission and why is so big, and there are so many people out there who aren't feeling supported, loved, needed, or wanted, and you have the very message that can help give that to them?
Well, the thing that feels the most doable for me is to continue to do my Facebook group, Busy Moms Unite, and, you know, build what I needed not that long ago, you know, continue to be a support, you know, to give without giving too much of myself. Um, it's an amazing supportive group in there, where there's a lot of women who, I actually launched a campaign in January, Calm Above Stress, all about a movement away from busy and stress. And so we're just all united in there, trying to help each other as moms, as, you know, we've got our own missions, whether it's in our home or otherwise. And so that's always the next step that I go back to. If the book feels too overwhelming, or, you know, anything else feels too far out of reach or whatever it is, I always go back there. Because I created that space, and I hold that space for women who don't feel loved, who don't feel supported.
I want to highlight that for a second, because you said that you created what you needed, what you wished was there. And that is such another hallmark sign of a change maker.
Yep.
What you said shortly after that was sometimes feeling like the book or the stages are too far out of reach. And that's, you know, we can create stretch goals and they feel stretchy and down the line. So I'm curious, what if we were to make them within reach? A lot of
I
times,
think the book is scary within reach, and same with stages. Like I said, it's all happening. It's scary.
so I'm going to lovingly challenge this for a second, because I was on a call yesterday, and the topic was actually publishing and book writing and all of that. And I went into it thinking, oh, they're gonna try and get us to write this whole novel, and it's gonna take years, and da 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 da. And it was actually broken down into the simplest way possible, with the idea being, the only thing that matters is getting your message out to the world. That's the urgency. It doesn't have to be a novel. It doesn't have to be bound. It doesn't have to be published. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be 800 pages long. And it's actually wild that call just took place yesterday, and now we're talking about this. It clearly was on purpose, but they challenged us to get our message into 60 pages and put that out there. And this might not even resonate, or maybe it's what you need. But the point is your message, I'm sure your message is perfect the way it is. And what would it take to get it out there and feel that, wow, that's actually within reach, and I'm going to move on that now? What if you start with an ebook? What if it's a PDF book?
I think some of the times when I feel that restriction, like a lot with entrepreneur. I mean, you're like, you have to have your website, you have to have your email, you have to have, like, when I start to feel that, I struggle, because I'm like, well, I'm working on this, and you know, all the skills that I teach, it just takes time. A lot of times people are like, well, you know, write that book, but what if, you know, what if you're like me? What if you've got a lot of trauma that you're dealing with and stuff? So like, there's all the in between. So for me, I mean, again, I always come back to things that feel uncomfortable, but comfortable enough to get my message out, is just to continue to be present, to be visible on my, you know, on the platforms and in my family, and just trusting that God will bring people to me as I do that. Because otherwise, like, you know, if you're talking ebook, well, then I'm thinking, well, there's email, you know what I mean? So like, for me, I think pricing, like all those kind of things, those things drive me crazy, because I would do this regardless. I already have been. To make it into a business is new, because you know, because I am giving so much of myself. So I think that's kind of where my biggest struggle is like that piece, the online piece.
Well, that's simple. You can hire someone to help you with that, who has that expertise.
Yeah.
Or does that feel like
Yeah.
like just a roadblock?
Well, I mean, I have a coach. I am invested, you know, as books goes, but I honestly have just not been able to even do any of that because of what has been surfacing for me. But I will say that I've done all of this without sinking back into a depression or catastrophizing or giving up. Like, I'm not going to do any of those things. And I challenge anybody out there for the same thing. Just because these things are coming up does not mean that I have to halt, stop, you know, whatever. This, I live and breathe this message.
Look, only you know how far you've come and how brave you've had to be. And that just gets to be perfectly a part of your journey. And it gets to be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah. I do have stuff that I want to put out. I just haven't figured out the online stuff yet.
When you intuitively sit with that, does anything come to mind? Like, ooh, I should go there, or does anything come through?
The one that's been coming through the most to me is just doing an email, but doing it sporadically instead of trying to be consistent with it. Just get my opt-in out there, because I've already tested it. People love it. It's my to-do list. I mean, people absolutely love it. But the email piece, I'm just like, I've noticed with like if there's multiple steps, even MailChimp is supposed to be easy, it's too much for me. So you're right. I mean, I may need to have someone do it for me, you know, hire somebody, even though it seems to be simple, but for me, it's not. For me, what's simple is being in it with people. That's the simplest for me, is being on someone's Facebook, like today. Like, that's a no-brainer for me. Scary nonetheless, but no-brainer.
Yeah. And that's what deserves most of your time and energy, right? Because that's
Yeah.
the thing that only you can do the way that you can do it. So
Yeah.
it's all about a choice. You as the CEO, you get to decide what things, what are the couple of things that don't feel good for you to do that would be really worth it to hire someone part-time, to get a virtual assistant that's savvy in digital marketing or social media, and that can help with something like that for an hour or two a week.
Yeah.
And how that could
That's been on my mind for sure.
open up more space for you.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You are so needed and wanted in this world.
Mhm. It's not easy to be vulnerable about this at all.
It's not easy to what?
It's not easy to be vulnerable with this. This is new. This is very fresh and new and tender to talk about. To think that a mother could give up her child. I've had 4. And it might be unknown to me, and that's why it's so important for us to be able to do it for ourselves, to create it for ourselves. Like I mentioned before, I wanted women to connect with so they wouldn't feel alone. And so I created it. And I think it's possible. I think it's possible to create that for ourselves. It's harder and nobody wants to have to do that. But I may never be able to stand in front of my birth mother and say, why did you get up? But that's how I feel on a daily basis. Why was I not wanted? Why did you let me go? And I don't have those answers. I never have those answers except the fact that I'm here. I've never shared this with anybody. So you are the first. Like, this is in my book, but it's not. Someone needs this apparently. So here you go.
Absolutely. I stand with you. I am grateful for your incredible vulnerability right now.
Whew.
It is such a profound, deeply personal message. And thank you for trusting me and trusting this community with it.
If it helps one person, it's worth it. That's what I always try to find, that one person, whether it's my kid, whether it's someone online, whether it's a neighbor. That's my goal every day, is to find one person.
Do you know anything about your birth mother?
No, it was a closed adoption. I know on a piece of paper, like I know some of the traits. Like my father was very goal oriented. I know that. Mom was 4'11". I'm surpassed that, thankfully. But no, it's very minuscule. I mean,
this is absolutely outside of my scope, and I there's something on my heart to offer to you, and you can take it or leave it, but just know that I am really not equipped to be guiding you in this way. But it's on my heart to share that I know that it can be helpful to write letters to people that have pained us. I'm sure this is not the first time you're hearing that, but my question to you would be, is there a possibility, without knowing anything about her, are you able to make up your own imaginary story about her in a way that feels empowering? And I don't know if, if a therapist would call this crazy, but I'm curious, is there a way to create a story that she was doing the very best she could, and writing a letter to her that you'll never send, you don't know where she is, but you're sharing deeply the experience of growing up as an adopted child, how it made you feel, and just allowing that to come through and put it in a letter. And
Well, it's the craziest thing. It never bothered me. It's not like my parents held it from me. I've always known that I was adopted. And when people would ask me if I wanted to meet her, I would say no. And that's how closed down was. That's how much I pushed down.
yeah,
I had no idea until I tried to hit send editor, and then all
the floodgate opened. The
it did,
floodgates
and it
opened,
hasn't stopped.
and it's like you're in this tsunami, and it's all coming through in every possible way.
The difference is I'm so much stronger than I was.
Hmm.
It's not taking down. It's not stopping me. It's hard. That's it.
I feel your strength and I see your strength, and it's an incredible journey that you've been on. And I'm so grateful that you joined us to talk about it. I hope that this gave you more motivation to know that your message is so needed. It is so important. And there are so many people out there that need it. And where you are is exactly perfect, as it is painful, but it's perfect, and it's all coming through in the way that it needs to be healed, so you can continue to ascend into the woman, the leader, the change maker that God has you here to be. Because your message, your experience, your journey is too big to not have bigger reach and impact in this world. I'm really honored that our paths have crossed, and I'm so grateful that you took the time to be here today. I hope that this was of service to you. And
yeah, I'm gonna go back and listen to it again.
Beautiful. And we didn't complete the 9 steps, but there's more of that. You and I can sidebar at any time, and just know that I'm always here for you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Is there anything on your heart or mind to share before we close?
One thing that as clear as I feel, I've been trying to work on like what my actual message is. Like if you could put it on a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would love to know what people feel from that, or what you get from that.
So there's 2 things that come to mind. I would first pray, ask a prayer for God to show you, to guide you as to what needs to come out of you. What is the most important thing that should be coming through you? Ask for his guidance and just pray on that daily. The second thing is, and you can meditate on this or journal, maybe you're not journaling right now, but meditate on this idea, this vision. Visualize you on a balcony, standing in front of thousands of people. You had 90 seconds to speak. What is the thing that you have to tell them?
You are loved. You are enough. But it seems so cliche because you hear it all the time. Do self-care, that's one thing that's driving me crazy, is like it's talked about, but it's just not realized.
So no one can talk about love or the absence of love in a way that you can.
Yeah.
So go back to what that message is. What are the nuggets of that message? And you will refine that over time.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm going to give you a big old kiss. Mwah. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And we will be in touch.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All my love.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.